Welcome to The Explainer. I am so thrilled you're here today because we're looking at something literally mind-bending. We're exploring this unexpected, totally profound convergence between 17th century Islamic metaphysics, specifically the work of the philosopher Mulla Sadra, and the cutting-edge frameworks of modern neuroengineering, systems theory, and cognitive modeling. It's this brilliant example of how totally different paths of human inquiry can lead us to the exact same foundational structures of reality.
Okay, let's dive into this, because it sounds like a total paradox, right? How on earth could a philosopher working hundreds of years before the invention of the MRI or the mapping of neural pathways have anything whatsoever to say about something like the Brain Kinematics Model? We are unpacking a mystery of parallel evolution today, between two wildly different fields of thought and looking at how they just perfectly mirror each other.
Here's a quick look at our roadmap for today. We'll start with how philosophy meets modern science, hit 5 points of convergence, zoom in on substantial motion, break down potential versus kinematics, and then wrap up with a unified scientific framework. All right, Section 1. Philosophy meets modern science, and establishing the boundary between them.
So the crucial point is this. Before we really get going, we need to set some academic guardrails. We are talking about two completely independent systems of thought. This isn't about using modern science to prove ancient metaphysics, and it definitely isn't about using philosophy to validate scientific models. As the source material strictly points out, we're looking at a structural alignment. These parallels give us a way to bridge interdisciplinary dialogue rather than acting as direct empirical confirmation of a philosophy.
To really appreciate this convergence, you gotta look at where they came from. On the left, Mulla Sadra's insights were born purely from metaphysical inquiry. He was asking the fundamental questions of existence. On the right, the modern frameworks we're discussing, like continuity theory, were forged through engineering, continuum mechanics, and biology. They took entirely different roads, but somehow arrived at the exact same destination.
Moving into our second section, the 5 points of convergence, or what we can think of as the metaphysical bridge.
Pillar number 1 of this bridge is the primacy of being. For Sadra, existence itself is the main event. The static labels or essences we stick on things are really just abstractions. And continuity theory totally agrees. It argues that primary reality isn't just a bunch of isolated static objects, but a continuous regulatory continuum. Objects only emerge when things organize within that field. So both frameworks are saying dynamic existence comes before fixed, static material.
Pillar 2 is the gradation of being. Sadra didn't believe existence was just rigid boxes. He saw it as having different degrees of intensity. Modern science completely mirrors this. In the Brain Kinematics Model, mental processing isn't just an on-off switch. It flows. It's a continuous, graded spectrum, starting from basic instinct, moving seamlessly up through sensation, perception, intuition, reasoning, and finally to illumination. No strict breaks, just a continuous flow of complexity.
Pillar 3 is wild, the unity of the knower and the known. Sadra argued this ontologically, that by knowing something you actually unite with it. But modern cognitive modeling sees this as a literal biological process. Your brain doesn't just passively record the world like a video camera. The very act of observation physically reshapes your brain's regulatory continuum, which then changes how you perceive things tomorrow. The knower and the known are constantly, reciprocally co-evolving. And this brilliantly illustrates our fourth pillar, the oneness of being. Multiplicity exists inside unity. Think about how nature is perfectly nested. A cell is just a temporary organization inside an organ, the organ's in the brain, which builds up to the organism, society, the biosphere, all the way out to the universe. We're all individual units, but we fit perfectly into one massive integrated continuum. So, if we look at a quick scorecard summarizing these pillars, you'll see the conceptual correspondence ranges from moderate to strong across the board. But look right at the middle row, substantial motion, rated as a very strong correspondence. The source material identifies this as the ultimate core of the alignment. It's the absolute strongest bridge between these two worlds.
Which brings us to Section 3, the core, substantial motion.
Now, what's really interesting about this concept is how perfectly the definitions line up. Centuries ago, Sadra figured out that substance doesn't just move through physical space. The substance itself is continuously changing. It's a constant renewal of existence. Fast forward to today, and the exact scientific analog to this is continuity theory's assertion that the regulatory continuum never stays fixed. It is constantly transforming through learning, maturation, aging, and even dreaming.
Listen, if you only take one thing away from this whole explainer,
Make it this. Identity persists through continuous transformation. Static permanence? It's a complete illusion. You literally are not the exact same physical composition you were a year ago, yet your organized existence, your identity, remains intact precisely because of this continuous renewal.
All right, Section 4, Potential versus Kinematics, the two forms of motion. We're going to shift gears a bit here. We're leaving the philosophical comparisons behind for a second and stepping into the purely scientific synthesis. The first type of motion we need to break down is internal motion. Notice that this is not physical movement through a room. This is the continuous evolution of a unit's regulatory potential. When your memory changes, when your brain adapts to a new environment, when your neural networks literally shift, that is internal motion. It's the invisible evolution of capability.
On the flip side, we have external motion. This is the stuff you can actually see. It's the observable kinematics of the unit, how it translates, rotates, walks around, and physically interacts with the environment. This falls squarely into the classical domain of mechanics and behavior.
If you want a really easy way to grasp this, think back to high school physics. Remember potential and kinetic energy? It's kind of like that. Regulatory potential is your evolving inner capacity and organization. Kinematics is the realized observable action that bursts out of that potential. They constantly feed into each other, but they're two distinct variables in the equation of life.
Moving right along to Section 5, a unified scientific framework, the master theory. This is where we hit the ultimate paradigm shift in the source material. These aren't just isolated scientific ideas. They are two halves of one beautifully unified framework. Historically, they were treated like two totally separate books. The Brain Kinematics Model asked, how does the brain move? Focusing on neural pathways and observable thought. Continuity theory asked, how does regulatory potential evolve? Focusing on the rules of aging and identity. But put them together, continuity theory gives us the general laws, and the BKM provides the specific, detailed neural application.
Let's move through this and see how it builds into an amazing, continuous feedback loop of existence. It starts with your internal regulatory potential. That dictates your observable actions, your kinematics. Those actions cause you to interact with your environment. And here's the kicker. That interaction leaves a residual modification on your internal state, which results in a brand new updated regulatory potential. It's a literal engine of life, seamlessly linking learning, adaptation, development, and aging into one flow.
So this totally redefines things. The Brain Kinematics Model isn't just a theory of brain motion sitting in a vacuum. It is the real-time observable kinematic manifestation of an underlying regulatory continuum. Continuity theory tells us why our internal organization changes, and the BKM shows us how those changes physically play out in real time as perception and thought.
It is just incredible, isn't it? Seeing how deep 17th century philosophical insights have this rigorous structural echo in modern systems theory. It proves that whether we use the language of ancient existence or the math of continuous regulation, human curiosity always gravitates toward the exact same fundamental truths. Which leaves us with this one final thought. If our minds, our identities, and our reality are in a state of constant reciprocal evolution, what limits our ultimate potential? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I hope this sparked your curiosity to go explore the continuous evolution of your own potential.